Okay, guys, I am going to test out my Trapunto method before I do the tutorial. And this is stitch and tear. I'm running out of it, so I zigzagged it. I just put two pieces together. And I didn't even do it right because I overlapped. So hopefully I'll still be able to tear it away, maybe by cutting these threads or what have you. But this is my bottom ring. This is how I like to hoop. I use a steel board that I just got off of Amazon. I wish it were a little bit larger. It's, I've only got about an inch. I don't know if you can see that, top and bottom. And then, I have several inches on these sides. And these are those rubber magnets that you can get on Amazon. They're really strong. I really like them, and they don't damage anything. So what I do, and I'm not sure how, this is probably quite open because I hooped a quilt the last time. Let me just tighten this. I have this the right way. Yeah. I didn't need it that loose. Okay, so this is my bottom ring, and I'm going to actually be floating my fabric. It'll be a quilt block. So I'm basically going to trapunto a quilt block before I've even pieced the quilt block in a, quilt top. It's not pieced yet. And in my tutorial, you'll see that I'm going to talk about this method I'm trying to devise whereby I can quilt in the hoop trapunto, but not do it the old-fashioned way that everybody else used to do, where they do everything, the quilt block, the quilting, the backing, the batting, and then they cut the block, they cut it into a square, and then they have these real stiff quilt blocks that they push together almost like what I did here. These weren't overlapping. And then they zigzag them together, and then they put a strip of binding over them, and it just doesn't look good. It's very stiff. So I like to quilt, if I'm going to quilt in the hoop, I like to quilt in the hoop with a traditional already pieced quilt top, just like as if you had a long arm. But in this method, I'm actually going to do a trapunto block. So for the trapunto block, I've decided that you can do it two different ways. You could do it on just, a piece of fabric that's going to be a block that I'm eventually going to, cut to the right size and put in my quilt top, piecing arrangement or what have you. So I could do it that way, or I could piece an entire quilt top, and this is all I have. I don't know if I could zoom out. Yeah, this is all I have right now. I was gonna use this and pretend like it was a quilt top that's already pieced, but the center of it is not solid, And I was like, well, I could still do a trapunto design. It's just not going to look as good. It's interesting because I already have my crosshair. I wouldn't have to draw a crosshair on here. So I don't know. So that's why I decided to just show you, the other method that I had in mind with just if you're using a quilt block separate that you haven't pieced yet. but eventually you will piece it. So that's what I'm doing here. And in my instructions, I said that you can hoop stitch and tear, or you can hoop water soluble stabilizer. So I'm going to use stitch and tear because eventually I'll just tear the whole thing away from the block, and then I'll piece the block, you know, into a quilt. So this is how I do it. Like I said, I have this steel plate, and a lot of times what I try to do is I try to get this part of it off the steel plate so that I could tighten it. And so in which case, you know, I don't even have a lot of steel left, but I have to kind of tilt that. It's kind of a pain, but I'm gonna just try it. And so I put the stabilizer over the bottom ring, and I put a magnet in the corner, and then in the other corner, far corner. This one I obviously can't do the corner because my dial is there. And then here, and hopefully I can get it there. And there you go. So I have 3 and 3 is 6, 7, 8 magnets. I think I had to buy like 2 sets of them on Amazon. And then now you don't have to worry about anything. And I'll put this in, and you know, stitch and tear is pretty tough. So I guess I will loosen it and try and open it. I'm pulling it open over under here and pulling this apart. I used to put these things in there, you know, clip to hold it apart so I didn't have to deal with it. But sometimes then I forget about it. And actually that's only for quilting in the hoop, because when you're just hooping stabilizer, that one's too wide. Oh yeah, that's why I had this wooden one is narrower. These little tiny wooden things. I might be able to get it in there. Trying not to block the camera. So it's kind of in there, holding it open. So let's see if I can get this. I'll try and push on this side. There we go. Got that corner down. Okay, so I have to put my elbow on this side because it's such a large hoop. And then it still wants to come out. Okay, there we go. And then I can take the magnets off, and since it's just stabilizer, I can still tighten it some more. And usually this one is right there. I can pull it out of that little opening. And I can go ahead and reset it or recess it or till it's level up on top. And then I'm just going to tighten this now. I'll take this out. So that's how I hoop. And I do that even when I'm quilting in the hoop. Like I said, I use the bigger clip in here for my guide. And it's just nice because you don't have to worry about, you know, it not being tight. You know, this is tight even when, it's kind of tight. But it's good enough because when you're quilting in the hoop, it doesn't even matter if you're really, really tight. So that's hooped, And then my other instructions are, let's see, for working with individual blocks is to stitch a square placement stitch on the stabilizer. So, and that square placement stitch is, you know, you want to make it bigger than your final block, say 10 millimeters bigger, just so that it's not in the way. The directions say to put it in the machine and stitch your placement box, you know, for where you have to put your batting, but I kind of know where to put it. It takes up practically the whole hoop. So this is 2 layers of Dream cotton by the Dream Company, and I'm just going to kind of center it in here the best I can. I may just make it with the size. So I'll go ahead and I'll put that in the machine. Here's the machine here. And now the first object of my design is a crosshair, because I don't know, I always want to have a crosshair in my design. That's the crimson, you can see it there. And then if I go to the next thread color, that's really the placement stitch for to put on the stabilizer that I was talking about. The next one, I believe, yeah, that's the outline of the Trapunto, and I'll be trimming around that outline in a minute, you know, trimming the batting off. So that's what I'm doing now. I have the batting down. Let's see, that's needle number 3. I'm trying to use up my thread on that needle. So I think we're all set to go. So I'm just gonna hit start, and I should get my purple thing so I don't use my hands. Get my fingers chopped off. Famous last words. Originally, I had a basting box on the batting, and then I realized that was dumb, because how am I going to trim it? You know, I had a hard time the first time I did it. I already did this once. This is my second try. So, because I'm going to pretend like I'm making a quilt, a table runner or something. So, I have one block done, and then I'm going to piece the blocks, and you know, I'll piece maybe 3 blocks together. So the first one, I did stitch down the batting along here, and that was wrong. That was a mistake. So I stitched my I stitched the outlines of the Trapunto design, and says stop the machine and trim the batting very close to the outlines of the Trapunto design. So I'll take this out of the hoop. I mean, I guess you could do it in the hoop, but it's easier to take it out. And I'll come over to my table. I'll try to get a close enough shot of me trimming this without getting in the camera. Let's see. So these are just your regular applique scissors. They curve up and they bend so you can get in the hoop. They say when you do this, you don't even really have to worry too much about getting too close, you know, real close. I mean, it'd be nice, yes, but it's okay if you're not. So I'm kind of got my scissors flat, and I'm not doing a very good job. It's always harder to get started. So that point gets you right there in the here. I'll have to fix that. So I'll just keep turning my hoop to make it easier. And I guess I could have gone around this twice, but I just didn't want to have a bomb-proof quilt or whatever. That's the whole reason why I'm not doing it the traditional way, because, you know, people who do the quilting in the hoop, and they do it like they do a block that's completely finished, and it's very stiff. You know, it's already got the batting and the backing, and I don't know, when you see those, when they're finished, the quilt, the edges where they put the binding or the sashing, it's stiff. It's not, it's like you can bend it right there. I don't know, it just, to me, I want to try to, you know, have a system where I do it as traditional as I can as far as quilting goes. I mean, I do have a long arm, but it's not computerized. So if I want things to be perfect, I have to rely on my embroidery machine. And a lot of people use wool for this step, or they'll use like one layer of cotton and one layer of wool. And I just, well, I have some wool, but I don't want to use it. And I don't want to use poly. A lot of people will use like 80-20, you know, for one layer, and then maybe one layer of wool. So 80-20 meaning 80% cotton and 20% poly. I just don't like poly, period. So and I don't want to use up my wool. I only have a little bit. So yeah, I'm not doing a very good job here. I just don't like using cotton for anything. I mean poly for anything. I'm gonna try to get some of these. I don't know, I need something to push that on. I mean, I'd like to get it a little bit better. I guess I don't really need the tweezers. I could. I mean, that's not bad. Got a couple spots I could do better. I'm still on camera. And I'm using this stitch and tear. I'm using scraps. You can see I have them stitched together with zigzagged together here. Just because, you know, I bought the wrong size, and so I wasted half of it. Okay, Lisa, you don't have to get every little smidget. Okay. Not bad, not bad. So you can see it's see, when you're a lefty, getting over to on this side is hard. Well, I guess it wouldn't matter, lefty, righty. Okay, I'm gonna go with that, I think. Alrighty, so that's trimmed, and then after it's trimmed, it says pin or just place fabric onto the batting. So this is my fabric that's going to be like a quilt block. So I'll be sewing this together with other quilt blocks, but I'm just going to make a table runner or something. So place it on here, and I just cut it big enough so it would kind of fit in my hoop. I don't know how big I'm going to eventually make these blocks, but they'll probably be about 8 inches, maybe. I don't know. 8 inches finished. This is 9.5. This is 8. So, you know. So it's cutting it close. So I put that on. I don't think I'm going to pin it. I could pin or just place it. Stitch your 190 by 190 basting box. Okay, so it would tack down the fabric. And then after I stitch that, I go and I remove the stitch and tear on the back of this inside of this design. You'll see. And then after I remove the stitch and tear, all I do is stitch a crosshair. So we're going to see if I can do a better job of that this time, because the first time I had to change my digitizing. I didn't do it right. So, like I said, I don't know if I need to tack this down. I'm just going to put it in and use the purple thing. So, it'd help if I put it in the right way. Okay, so let's get it in there. And so I'm on that step. So that's the blue. Stitch your 190 by 90 basting box in blue, and I'm using the same. Ooh, I might run out of thread. Well, let's see if I can. I don't know. I'm trying to use up this old thread, but let's just see. So we'll hit start. I'll get my purple thing. I don't chop my fingers off. just kind of sweeping. I have my machine going slow. I don't know why. Maybe because I was doing something. I made it. Still got a little bit of thread left. Okay, so it should stop. You have to have your machine stop at that thread color. And we'll pull it out. And then we'll turn it over. And now this is where I'm not sure if I'm gonna, luck with getting this out. Especially since I have it stitched. So let's go with the thread ripper and get these stitches out where I connected my, of course, my thread ripper is crappy. I bet you I could do it with this, that's so long. They don't make thread rippers, seam rippers like this with the curved, with this curve. They only make them straight. I love them with the curve. I like them both ways for different reasons, but yeah, for some reason they don't do that anymore. So be careful around here. Okay. So let's see now if I can not get in the way of the camera. And so we just want to tear away on the inside. I used to have something that I could put under the hoop that was just the thickness of the hoop so that I could do this kind of stuff without, distorting anything. So if you hold your finger on the outside and then pull, you can have better luck. I know I'm blocking the camera. I'm still blocking it. Oh, I pulled up something. Messing up. See how I'm pulling that up? I mean, it's not tacked down, so not much you can do. And you could put some tape on it, because all we're going to do now is stitch across here. So could put a couple pieces of tape, because I mean all of this stitch and tear is going to come off. I just don't want to distort anything. Yeah, that wasn't good. Okay. So, yeah, like I said, you could put a couple pieces of tape just so that things don't, you know, you don't want to put it where your crosshair is going to be. But I guess you could. I probably don't even have to do this, but I did kind of mess it up over here. I guess I'll do it everywhere. And then when I turn it over, I'll flatten the tape better. I probably shouldn't do this because I want to experiment to see if I actually need to do it. So I'll turn it over and press down on the tape so that it doesn't get stuck down there. Okay. And then we put it back in the machine. Make sure my directions are right. Remove the stitch and tear, and it says stitch the basting crosshair using a 5mm stitch length. So for this one, I'm going to use needle number 2 because it's darker thread. It's got like orange threads. I'm going to release the tension disc, pull some thread out, bring the tension disc back, and when my machine goes down on the first stitch, when I hit it to start, I'm going to hit it 2 times fast, once to start, once to stop. Now my machine gives a warning. I'll show you if you can see this. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Kind of. But when I hit the start button here, I could hit it here too, but I usually hit it down here. When I hit that, I get this machine starts to run, so I have to hit start stop again. So now when I hit start stop, I hit it 2 times, once to start and once to stop, because I want to pull up a bobbin thread. So I'll hold this lightly, kind of loosely, because you know the needle has to go down, but I am holding it. And so I'll hit this twice. And so it stopped, but I pull on this thread and the bobbin thread comes up. And then I just hold it here kind of loosely again so that the needle can go down, and I hit start. Got to hit it twice. So that usually gives you a clean tie on. Hey guys, I'm interrupting this video because I wanted to let you know that I am not making ties in the future on these crosshairs. That was a nightmare, taking out those tie-ons and tie-offs on this crosshair, because you're taking the crosshair thread out after later on, like after your quilt sandwich is hooped, so you can only work with that top fabric. So you can't even get the tie-offs and tie-ons out. It's a nightmare. And even if you were to take those knots out before you hooped your quilt sandwich later, even if you say, you know, unhooped this and then realized, oh, I have to take these tie-offs out, even then, it's a nightmare because the ties are so tiny and you're trying to take tie-offs off through double batting. So the next time I make this, I've already changed my digitizing. I'm actually making a jump stitch, what I call, that's like off to the side, and it's about, I don't know, 5 to 10 big long stitches. There's no tie on or tie off even on that. So in order to make sure even that catches, I have to pull up the bobbin thread and then let that, you know, one or 2 inch long basting jump stitch, I call it. It's not really a jump stitch, but it's going to be used for jumping to this crosshair. So I have this like 1 or 2 inch row of long stitches, no ties, and then they will jump to this crosshair, which also has no ties anymore. Now, in Embird, which is the digitizing software I use, what I've noticed is even though I set these stitches, I actually convert a regular outline stitch to a manual stitch, and I've set Embird to have 0 ties whenever I digitize a manual stitch. Even though I did that and set it for 0 ties, guess what? When I get to editor, which is the stitch portion of the program, not the vector portion, when I get to editor, there's always tie-offs at the end. So it'll start with no ties, but it ends with ties, and it ends with the number of ties, which is 6, that I have usually set for like other types of objects like fills and outlines and whatnot. So in the future, what I have to do now, because I can't figure out how to fix that, I did write the company, so we'll see. I could be doing something wrong. In the future, what I have to do is when I leave the vector digitizing portion of the program and go into the stitch portion where I save my JEF file, or PS if you have a brother, in that portion of the program, I have to lasso those ending tie-offs and delete them. And so then they won't be there. So that's going to make my crosshair a little bit shorter, and just know that the longer your crosshair, the more accurate you are when you get to the 2-stage process I have of realigning, which is later on when we when we hoop the quilt top. You check for center, and then you check for rotation if you have to rotate like 1 or 2 degrees. And that second step, checking for rotation, is where you follow a crosshair. And I usually only follow the vertical leg of the crosshair. But the longer your crosshair, the more accurate you are. I'm pretty good at it, so I know I don't even have to follow it. I could just see where it is before I even start following it. So, but anyways, just so you know, try not to take off too much of the length of it, but you do want to get the ties off. So I'll try to make a follow-up video on this process of what I'm talking about. And, you know, you'll be much happier, believe me, because then when you remove your thread in the later steps, when your quilt sandwich is hooped with the batting and backing, everything comes out real easy, and you can just pull on the top thread, and then the bobbin thread, you can pull it up when you do so, and so then you can pull the bobbin thread and the top thread out of that quilt sandwich in that later step. So anyways, just wanted to let you know, and like I said, I'll try to follow up with an example of that. And just so you know, for this piece, I might use this quilt block. I have one more quilt block left to show you the second part of this. I actually did take these ties out before I hooped it in the quilt sandwich, so it was a nightmare. And I was able to get underneath, you know, right by the batting. This was before I even put it in a quilt sandwich, and it was still hard. So I will, you know, in the future never have that issue. All right, guys, back to the video. Okay. So then that's it for this step. So at this point, then you just take it off. Now that crosshair is for lining up later, because remember, you know, we have to do our stitching, you know, our quilting, the quilting in here and the background quilting. But we can't do any of that until our other layer of batting is on the whole quilt, you know. So we turn it over, and I could remove the tape, or I could just pull the stitch and tear and let it come off with that, because now we're just gonna remove everything. So it says unhoop, remove all stitch and tear, leave the basting box as a reference box. So this basting box that was stitched, I can leave that on the fabric. So I guess I'll just unhoop it just to make it easier to let me zoom out, just to make it easier to just tear away the stitch and tear. So let's see. So there's the fabric. So I have tape on the back of my hoop, so it's kind of holding it down there. And then you kind of want to go like this instead of pulling up, and it'll usually, well, you kind of want to get close to it, but oh well. And then this side. And then this, I could take it off now to get the hoop out of the way. Now these aren't going to come out easy, so because of the stitches there. I'll just use a seam ripper. Okay. I guess it'd be a lot easier if you didn't have, boy, that's not pulling away too easy. Oh, because these are basting stitches. I guess if I would have made these regular length stitches, the stitch and tear would pull away easier. I wasn't thinking of that. Now I don't know what I want to do. Because, you know, basting stitches are easier to take out if I did decide to take this out, because this is I made this box small, I think. I should have made it a little, well, I made it 7.5 and my hoop is 8. But my quilt blocks, I thought I wanted to have be 8 inches. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about all this, because like I said, it would be so much easier to remove if, and this tape is going to be a pain because it's on the batting. I probably didn't even need the tape. It's just more time consuming. So yeah, I don't know if I'd have to make my blocks then say 7 inches. If I see, this isn't coming off and I'm ruining my basting stitch. I don't know why that's stuck on there. Yeah, I don't know. 'Cause yeah, I don't like that. Because it comes off easy around the design because, of course, those are small stitches. Famous last words. Why, that was so tough. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I guess if you pull the inside out first and then pull it, but still, it is somewhat of a pain with those stitches being so long. So I don't know. And there is stabilizer that's not as strong as stitch and tear. There's, see, I just tore it. Yeah. So I might change that. I think this is going to be too much of a pain. So, and you know, some people have really big hoops, so they would never even have this problem. But my hoop is only 8 by, it's not even 8 by, see, it's puckering here where I was pulling. It's puckering all the way around. Okay. Yeah, that's too much work. So, how big did I make that basting box? Yeah. 7.5. So I guess I could have made it not much bigger if my hoop is only 8, not even 8, 200 mils, it's 7.87, so it's like 7 3/4. So I mean, I came pretty close. Hey guys, I'm interrupting the video because I wanted to let you know, as you watch the rest of the video, these sizes might be a little different than what I've kind of decided on, because you know, going through all of this experimenting with the different sizes, I've kind of narrowed it down to this what you see here, because of the size of my hoop. My hoop is only 200 millimeters in height. I have 240 in width, but of course I'm working with a square design here. And so this is a Trapunto design that I digitized in Embird Studio Next. And this is their mesh that I just digitized in there as well. And what I've decided is the fabric tack down that we do at the like one of the beginning steps, I want to cut that out eventually. I don't want to have that in any part of my quilt or anything. So I do want to try to take up as much of the hoop as I can. So I'm at 194 mils for this blue fabric tack down. That's about 7 5/8. And the reason why I chose that number is because somewhere in the video, I don't know if I edited it out or not, but I had worked with a fabric tack down of 7 3/4 instead of the 7 5/8, and I wasn't able to rotate my design by 1 degree to get it straight, because you know we all hoop crookedly. Well, that was at 7 3/4, and so I'm really struggling with the size of my hoop, because you know you want to maximize your space as much as you can. So I went down to 7 5/8, which is 7.625 on my fabric tack down. And yes, I could have 2 different files, one for the fabric tack down and the crosshair, and say one for the design without this fabric tack down. That would help a lot for like lining up your design and rotating it if you need be. But I don't want to have 2 files. I want to just have everything in one file. So I'm going to see if this will work, because I still want to trim this stitching out of the fabric when I trim my block. So, and I want my blocks to be trimmed to 7.5 inches. You know, I don't want to have some wonky number to trim my blocks. So that doesn't leave me much, you know. And if you, when you're trimming these blocks that already have stitching on them, you know, this fabric tack down stitch, if your blade gets on the thread, you know, instead of within the thread, then your fabric frays, you know, it's just a pain. So I hope this is going to work. It may not, but this is kind of what I'm going to try next time. Now, the other option would be to not even use a fabric tack down, because if you think about it, the only thing I'm doing with the fabric at this point is stitching across here, because the Trapunto Batting is stitched on the stabilizer. The fabric's not even there yet. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I don't need it. Maybe I should just put a couple pins in, you know. But then I thought, oh, well, then maybe my crosshair won't be straight, you know. But it probably would be. It probably would be fine. And you don't have to be exactly perfect with this Trapunto. There is room for, there's a margin of error that's just, you know, it's not real stressful. And the other thing I thought about was, well, maybe I could make, if I do really want to have a fabric tack down, I could, you know, make it a really long basting stitch. Well, I did that, and I think it's in the video. Actually, it might be the beginning part of this video. And if you use a basting stitch with long stitches, then it's hard to tear out the stitch and tear that I'm using, because I am using stitch and tear instead of wash away. So, and instead of also poly mesh and all that, I don't use poly mesh hardly ever for anything. It's just, ugh, it's so toxic to me. And then you have to iron it before you use it, or else it shrivels up, and even then it shrivels up if you accidentally hit it with an iron. So I'm using stitch and tear, or I'd use wash away, which I don't really like because in my opinion it doesn't really wash away. So so these are all my little pet peeves, and so this is why I have to go down these rabbit holes. But so I'm going to try this, and these stitches are going to be 2mm stitches so that they'll tear well with the stitch and tear. And I'm going to see if I have enough room to trim this block to 7.5 inches when I get ready to piece this block into the quilt top. So, and then moving on to the next item. So since my block is going to be trimmed to 7.5 inches, I wanted to give myself a good inch between the, well, it would be a good half inch, but I wanted to give myself, a good half inch between the edge of this fill. So imagine a line here where the fill, borders on. I wanted to give myself at least a half inch between there and the edge of my 7.5 inch block. So, but as you can see, I'm digitizing my design at 6 3/4. So I'm not digitizing it at 6.5. I just didn't want to keep getting so small. I'm trying to just squeeze in as much as I can squeeze in. So I'm digitizing the design then at 6 3/4 square. So what you see with this fill, this background fill. And with that being at 6 3/4, you want at least an inch between the edge of your trapunto and the edge of your fill, because you want to have, a wide enough area here for Embird to fill it in with something. So you really want more than an inch on each side, but mine are only about an inch. And so that means that 2 inches total difference. So this trapunto has to be then 2 inches smaller than whatever your design, I'm calling this whole thing the design. It has to be 2 inches smaller than your design. So, and there are some, I don't know if I mentioned, there are some meshes that don't fill in when you have something so small like that. But you can play with the size of your mesh and so on and so on. But I would say, here I say we want at least an inch between the two edges. I would say 1 1/4 or 1.5 inches. 1.5 is better. But then on the other hand, you don't want a lot of fill and just a tiny little trapunto in the center. So I'm trying to find a good balance, to where this is the star and this isn't. So that's one reason why I liked the curly plant coming from the core, because it didn't seem to care how narrow this was, the curly plant with the core. So there's just so much to think about. So if your hoop is a different size than my hoop, then you can kind of see, you know, the difference between each of these. And you can do your measurements accordingly. So this might help you then. And again, I might not stitch this at all and just wing it. You know, I could tape it. I could tape the fabric on. If I'm going to trim the edges anyways, I don't have to worry about the tape fraying it. So we'll see. We'll see. So when I'm done stitching down the batting, you know, and when I'm done tacking down the fabric and stitching my crosshair, then I take it out of the hoop and I trim it to 7.5 inches square. So it's like I'm trimming a block like any block that I'm going to put into a quilt. So that means then that I have 7.5 inches that my block is, and then when I stitch it at, you know, 1/4 inch on each side, that kind of gives me a 7-inch finished block, which means I kind of want to digitize my fill here, this background fill, these pebbles, at 6.75, because that'll be just inside the 7-inch block. So I know I'm cutting everything close here. And these inches to mils aren't exact, you know, I'm just trying to make it simple for myself. So so if this is 6 3/4, this fill, then the Trapunto design in the center has to be at least 2 inches smaller, because you need 1 inch on each side of the Trapunto block for this fill. Because if you don't have 1 inch or more, but 1.5 inches is better, but you need something there so that Embird can fill this in. And some of the mesh, it didn't even fill in with this little bit of space here. This design is taller than it is wide, so on the sides here I have more room than I do up here, you know, down here. But I just love this mesh that you're looking at. It's their curly plant, and it's coming from the core, and this inside is your opening. It's your core, and they're like coming off of it. Now the only thing I don't like about this is that it's stitching this as well, and I kind of wanted a design that didn't stitch the outer edge, so that I could just stitch it all in one go when the fill was all done. But I did a sew sim on it, and it looks pretty good. It stitches it twice, just like all the pebbles. These are all stitched over, you know, 2 times. And we do that with long arm quilting with our pebbles. They're usually stitched twice. But we don't stitch our swirls twice. These swirls are stitched twice as well, but that's okay. It's just, I love it because it's so natural. I have some others that I tried. I'll show you them on my Word doc. This is one with just pebbles, and this is what I mean when I was mentioning that, you know, this one is not coming from, it's not even touching the Trapunto. but it came pretty close. And let's see. Oh, these are the curly planned as well, but is this the one where it's, let me see what my notes say. Outer and inner contours are not stitched. On this one, I did the curly planned, but I didn't use, I didn't tell it that it was coming from a core. I let it come from origin, and I don't know why my notes aren't here for that. Cut seed 1 and seed 12. I think I kind of messed up my notes here, but you kind of get the idea. There's just so many options. You know, you get different leaves that you can put in. Now in this one, I said the flowers, and the flower is this circle here from my font. That's my flower, is that circle, and I said 100%. And this first tab here I put from origin. I don't know why I don't have that here, but and then my leaves, it didn't even matter because none of my leaves showed up. And sometimes that happens. This is seed, was this seed number 0? Seed 1. Okay, so this goes with this. There's 1,000 seeds, meaning you get 1,000 different patterns. So if you don't like this, you could try another one. It's just amazing. Okay, this is seed 0. And it's weird, I told it not to stitch the inner and outer contours, but because this is coming from, let's see, this was coming from origin point. What does this one say? Okay, so this one is from the core down here. This one is from the origin point. And, you know, I use different sizes too. This one, this might be the one that I'm using. Or no, I think this is a different one. This one, the sprouts are 130%. And I put a range of 2 instead of 5, meaning the sizes stay closer to the same size. I used the same circle as my flower, and the leaves are 100% length. This is the default. Oh, the curliness, I upped it to 100%. The default is 75. The core, see, I don't even have the core showing. The core is actually your opening here. They call it a hole in this case. So that one is also coming from the core. So it's plants are growing from the core. Now these here are net and glyphs. So this one is net, and I do like it. It's all circles, and the distribution I chose was spiral 1, and it's mesh mode net, category shapes, and the kind is the first choice, which is the pebbles. That looks really nice, really nice. And it's very organic because I chose spiral 1. The width is 8 mils of these circles. And it's interior, meaning it doesn't get cut off. These don't get cut off. See, I wanted something where they don't get cut off. I didn't want it to be cropped. So in scale of 100. And these are the glyphs. And with the glyphs, you can choose them from Embird's library, or you could choose them from your font. So I could have chosen my font again with those circle shapes, but I just chose from the library this time. And the large cells, I chose Embird Swirl here. And the small cells we're going to encompass 60% of what you see, and my small cells were the circle. And I decided to do it this way because this is such a dense swirl. I think I'm going to request a swirl that's slightly not as curled into the center. Maybe something not so dense. And Embird always, they're so good about that. If they can do something that you request, they do it. This might have been the one down here where these were switched, and you could see how the swirls are too small. So I had the swirls be the small ones and the circles be the large ones, and it just doesn't look as good. So I opted for that. And I thought about using this because these do not emanate from the core. You know, these are glyphs, these are net, and they're not going to stitch this outer edge. So I'll be able to stitch it after the fact or before the fact or what have you. I'll just, you know, I could stitch it when these little things are being stitched, you know, and it'll just have one layer of stitching. I thought about this, and I couldn't decide which one I like better, like this one, because I like the swirls mixed with the pebbles. I couldn't decide between this blue one and this organic one. You know, I just love the way it looks. I love the way these curl in. I've been doing this a lot, and I see other digitizers. That one girl, I can't remember her name, on YouTube, she does this a lot where she comes in with her swirls and she comes all the way in, and it looks so good. And it's just very natural looking. So sometimes with this though, you get a gap, you know, like you'll get a weird gap here and there. And yes, you could turn them into outlines and then put it in there. Like I could put a circle in there, and you have to make sure that you connect it somehow. And it's not hard to do. I've done it, but I'm just gonna let it go. The one that I decided on is the one on the other Word doc. So these were just some other ones here. But it's just insane, the power that we have with this software. So that's kind of what I decided on with my sizes. So when you watch the video, the rest of this video, you're going to see me using different sizes, and you'll see things that I've run into. And I just decided to leave everything in there. It's just so you can see the process and what we have to go through, you know, as digitizers to kind of figure out a good plan, you know. All right, back to the video. So anyways, you can see that the crosshairs, let me cut this jump stitch. They are correct. The crosshairs are right in the center of this. Here's the point, here's the other point. So the crosshairs are correct. Here's the other one. So this is going to be a really tiny, tiny table runner, but I'm just experimenting, you know. So go. And then I'll have one in the center. So let me change the basting stitch. This final basting, not final, but let me change it to a regular length, you know, like 2 mils. Because if I'm going to cut on it anyways, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I changed the size of my trapunto part of the design to 6.5 inches, and I made the stitch that tacks down the fabric, I made that 7 3/4, so it's really going to come to the edge when I get to the fabric. So my whole design's going to be smaller on this one, and this will be my center block of this table runner, this tiny table runner. This will be the fabric I'll use. So 3rd time's a charm. So we shall see. In my my stitch that's holding the fabric down. Let's see, the fabric down. Yeah, it's not a basting stitch. It's 2 millimeters so that the stitch and tear can come off easier. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Here we go. I could pull up the bobbin thread, but I don't feel like it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and trim that, and I'll just come back after I'm done trimming that batting. Okay, so I trimmed away the batting, and now we will put the fabric on, and it's really going to come to the edges here, because it's going to be 7 3/4, so it's going to be really tight. But I should be fine. I'll just let that go. So we'll go ahead and put it back in. So remember, it's gonna stitch the rectangle, or square rather, and, well, a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. Not all rectangles are squares, but all squares are rectangles. That's how it goes. Anyways, okay, so now we're going to stitch this box, and this box is going to be 2 millimeters. So, and it's going to be, oh, I have it on needle number 3. Okay, yeah, the same needle. I changed my thread, so it's going to be like silver, which is fine. All right. It's right up on the end here. But it let me, you know, that's why I like to use the hoops that come with the machine. Because, you know, you can go up to the very edge. And you probably can't see that. So now with this size, 6.5 on the Trapunto, I'll have a lot of leeway when I go to stitch my seams. It's just less stressful. Okay, so that's gonna stop. You want your machine to stop. And then you want to turn it over and remove the stitch and tear on the inside. So I still have this issue I'm dealing with. This thread is that viscous thread. It's not as hard to rip. That's why I don't like it. It's just, ugh, it's weird. Okay. It's that Good Company. I can't remember the name of them. All right, so now we're going to take away the inside so that we can stitch our crosshair. And I'm probably in the way of the camera. So I'm pressing with my left thumb there. Now my, whoops. Okay. I'm just gonna cut it. It's too hard to tear. I didn't get this torn away, but it's okay. Because it's doubled up here, because I have to be, you know, cheapskate. So that's good enough. I'm not doing this good. Getting worse and worse at it. But at least I'm using my scissors. Getting smart there. Oh, got caught on something. Okay, I'm not going to put any tape on it this time. Just going to leave it as is, and we're going to go ahead and stitch our crosshair. So put it back in the machine. going to stitch the crosshair on needle number 2 again. So I'm going to pull the thread, pull up my bobbin thread, hit once, needles machine starts, hit it 2 times fast. Wait, I'm going to get rid of this thread finally. Okay. All right, 2 times fast. Pull up the bobbin thread. And hold it kind of loose, but hit start once. Oh, again, start. Okay. All right. Let's see. We got a straight cross here. Let's cut this. This fabric is so pretty, but it's not very good quality. It, like, the ink on it kind of goes away or something. Okay. I don't know if we're straight. Oh, okay. It is straight on the point. That point. Okay. All right. So to tear away on this 2mm stitch line, I'm gonna tear away from the inside, I think, and I'm gonna leave it hooped this time. So I'm gonna just try to lift this up. That one I never got it all the way off. Probably don't really need to be doing that, but yeah, I'm gonna take it from the inside and like remove the stitch and tear from. Yeah, if I didn't get it on the inside, then it's hard to get it on the outside. Okay. Mud cheese here. Okay, now if I just did it right, that would help. I'm sure that'll come away. Perfect. I don't want to stretch that out, but boy, that is not coming off. Yeah, that was really something. And then this, don't want to cut the small stitches. Hope I'm not stretching this. The rest of this should just come off. So it was easier to leave it in the hoop, I think. I'm not sure, but I kind of think it is. So I can just put my finger in there and get that out. I didn't tear that away though. Very good. So I can use my fingernails or a tweezer. So that was a good call. That was a good call. So that everything is just a little bit smaller, but and then I can cut either on this basting line for my blocks, because it's 7 3/4. So I could cut, if I cut on it, then you know I'm going to have all these threads that I'm going to be pulling. But if I cut just inside of it at 7 1/2, and then this is 6 1/2, I'd have a whole inch to play with. I have my gap and my seam allowance and everything, so I could do that. So I could, because what's interesting is when you want to trim a block that has trapunto in it, you know, they showed, and obviously your ruler is going to be toppling. So it's almost better to have a guideline like that. And you could just go in, you know, at an 1/8, put the 1/8 inch on the stitching, and then trim it. And then stitch them all together. That'll work. So, are they just going to be plain blocks for what I'm making? Because since they are so small, I could put like sashing or something around them. So, as it is, now these two are going to be different, but that's okay. So that's kind of, I mean, it's going to be very small. I should just cut them and stitch them together so I can experiment with these crosshairs. Or stitch them together and maybe put a border all the way around, a big border. I don't know. I'll decide. I'll be back. Okay, so I trimmed them all to 7 1/2. This one was easy to trim because you just put the 1/8 inch on that line, and then you know you're trimming an 1/8 inch inside of the line. These were harder because, you know, this is 7.5. These are 7.5 cut, but my basting line was 7.5. So I had to cut right on the basting line, or just, you know, a hair in it, because you could see here I didn't get all the threads cut and it frayed. I didn't get the stitches cut and it frayed because I didn't go, you know, I had some like threads. So it is better. So, you know, this one was 7 3/4, but I cut it to 7.5 by doing an 1/8 inch on each side. So I'm inside that line. So that's the ticket. So now I'm gonna stitch them together so that I could, now let's see, I'll know which is the right way, because this was the horizontal, so this one is shorter. Yeah, so this should go this way. Yeah. And this one is going the right way. So they go like that. So I'll go ahead and I'll stitch them at 1/4 inch. And I'll be right back. Okay, so I stitched these together and I pressed the seams open. So I used a 1/4 inch seam, and that's what it looks like. So we're going to pretend that this is a quilt top ready to be quilted. So yes, I could add a border. All right, I'll add a border. I'll be back. Okay, let's see if I can out. Now, this, it looks wider because I'm at an angle. So let's see if I can lift it up a little. I've got it attached to the power cord. So I put the border on. It's kind of wide. I cut it 4 inches, so it'll end up 3.5, like with binding or what have you. And I layered up some batting. This is 100% cotton. It's the same as what's in here. There's 2 layers in the Trapuntos. 1 layer here. Same thing, Dream Wool or Dream Company, 100% cotton. And then this is just some backing that I had. Just not that great a quality. It's from like Walmart or something. And so you could see I made the batting bigger just in case there is shrinkage. And so after I layered it up, I stuck these safety pins in. These are the kind that, you know, are bent, that people, the bottom is bent because they're easier to, you can't tell this one is bent, but they're easier to fasten a quilt, like people who do that with people who quilt on their sewing machine sometimes will use these pins. But I just went and stuck them in. I didn't fasten them yet. I just stuck them through. And once, now that I have them all stuck through, now I'm going to close them. And I'm doing this on my mat, so I'm not worried about scratching it or anything. I did put this under it, the steel plate for hooping, but when I stuck the pins in, I didn't have this under it. I just had it on the mat. So I'll just put this aside for a minute. So anyways, so now that they're all stuck in and everything is smooth, now I'm just going to fasten them. I think I'll bring it up, and there's a tool also, and so you don't have to use your fingernail, but there aren't that many. I don't know if I have them down low enough. Let me grab my hoop. Yeah, I guess they're okay where they're at. And what about the ones on the side? Those are probably gonna have to go. I don't want to stretch out my sides, so maybe I won't even. Well, I'll just do it anyways. Try not to stretch them. It's easier just to go straight in. Whoops, something happened there. This one in. Yeah, I can't remember what that tool looks like, but it kind of like, it grabs this needle that's sticking up, or the part of the pin that's sticking up, and I don't know though. I don't remember. You know, you won't stretch your fabric and you won't kill your fingernail. So now that that's all done, I'm gonna do the center one first. So I'm gonna put my steel plate under, and I'm gonna hoop it the same way, but I don't have any stabilizer. I'm going to actually hoop the quilt. So that's going to be scary because I'll be nervous that I'm going to stretch out. Ooh, in here. Because I can't float it unless I float it on water soluble. So let's see. What if I hooped it this way? If I hooped it this way, I could maybe, no. I'm still gonna hit this trapunto. So the other option then would be to hoop some water soluble. But let's think, if this were a real quilt, that'd be a lot of stabilizer I'd be ruining. Because, you know, I have to think about it. I mean, this is how big my blocks would be. Now, granted, I could have made these bigger and the trapunto in the middle of a bigger block, and that way the trapunto would be away from the hoop when I go to hoop it. But if I did it this way, I'd really be hooping right in the center of it. So I'd have to hoop it like this. And then I'd have to turn the design, which I think the design will be fine if I turn it because of the size of it. Because remember, this is the short part. I'm going to have to just try it. There's not much I can do unless I, like I said, use water-soluble stabilizer on every single hooping with Trapunto, and I'm not going to do that. So let's go ahead. I've got the plate under, but now I have to turn it. I really do need a bigger steel plate. A steel table would have been great. Okay, it's here and here. And it goes all the way up there. Oh, now these safety pins are going to be in the way. Are they? Yeah. Oof. I can barely hoop it this way. Oh, and I'm going to stretch this out. Okay. I got to think of another way. Hold on while I think about this. Okay, I've decided I'm going to just hoop it the long way, the regular way. And I'm going to smash my Trapunto. So, this is when I wish I had if I had a bigger hoop, then I could have made, well, I could have made my blocks bigger. So next time, if I do this again, I will have to add on to the blocks in some manner. I don't know how. You know, just putting sashing around them. Sometimes that doesn't look good. It just looks too old-fashioned. So let's just pin this back. So bummed. Okay, so we'll put this under, and now I'm gonna pull this to the edge of the table because I still wanna, oh, to hoop this, I forgot. Let me grab my hoop template, one sec. So these are the hoop templates that came with my largest hoop. It's my M1 hoop. And this is how it came. I don't know if you could see, it's just flat. And what I did was I scored with like, what did I use? I think I might have used a knife from one of those, what do you call them? That set you get. God, I can't remember what they're called. But I scored it, and then I bent up the side on this one. You can kind of see. I don't know if you can see that edge is bent up. And actually, I didn't score it on the line. I scored it like a 1/4 inch away from the line and bent it up because it has to fit inside. And this has double-sided tape on the back of it, so I have to be careful. This has to be able to fit inside of the hoop. And I also cut the long edges so you can see. I didn't cut off a lot on the long edges, but you can see if I line them both up. I cut off maybe, it's very thin. I don't know if you could see, it's like 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch off of each long edge so that it would just completely fit inside this inner ring. And this is the template I use for when I actually hoop everything, you know. The template that came with the machine, you know, flat like this. Well, this one was flat too until I bent it, but I use this template for when I'm floating, because when you float, yeah, it's a long story, but I have videos on that as well, just so you know, in my playlist. So the first thing I do with both methods actually is I take the plastic hoop template, and I have double-sided tape. This I accidentally put this one on paper the last time, so it's not real sticky, but it's sticky enough. But I put it right in this edge here. So this is like really thin double-sided tape. It's not a 1/4 inch, it's 5 mils, I think. You know, 6 mils is a 1/4 inch. And then, so I take this crosshair and I line it up with this crosshair. So, and because of the tape, it sticks. So I go ahead and I line that up. And then I press, and oh, my hoop is under there. I usually don't put this hoop under there for this step. Okay. So I can kind of see the crosshair in this little hole too. And, you know, just gonna get it close enough because we check it anyways. So then once that's done, then I take the inner ring here. Let me go back. And this has double-sided tape on it on the bottom, which will stick to the fabric. And I just place it, it'll just lay right over it. And I could see this line and this line will match up with that one, or I try to, and then this center line and this center line matches up. So usually if you just get the side one, it kind of works itself in because the sides are folded up, you know. Well, not really. You can move it. There is a little bit of wiggle room back and forth. And then I press that down. And then I put this under. So I go ahead and I put this under. I got my steel plate under there. And I try to get it, you know, kind of close. And when I quilt in the hoop, a big quilt, this is exactly how I do it. And I can see and feel the edge of that bottom ring. I can feel a gap here. So this bottom ring has to be moved that way. So I just take my fingers here on top and I push down, and the bottom ring slowly slides. So people who say you need it to be sticky or rubbery on the bottom, no, I don't do it that way, because I'll eventually put my magnets on too, and I need that steel plate for that as well. So over here I can still feel it over here. So I just press down, and then I kind of see this could probably be pressed because this is missing. I can see a little gap. And you kind of get a feel for your machine and your hoop. I can move that a little. That still can be moved. And you know, this is all stuck to this, so I'm still centered here. It's just the bottom ring that's moving. And I guess I'm pretty happy with that. I don't press down or anything yet. I make sure everything, you know, I go like that and make sure the top is nice and flat and not loosey-goosey in there, but I'm not pulling anything. So then I take the magnets. Now, this one, I forgot to loosen this. This is when I usually put that clip in there. I have clips here. Because when I hoop a quilt, usually these red clips, they're a 1/2 inch. Usually that's the width I want here. So I'm going to open this up. It's still not a 1/2 inch. It just makes it easier. Sometimes I forget to take it out, so I just leave it in there. I don't know. Okay. So then, you know, that's about right, but now I have to do this again because I forgot to do that. Okay, move this one. So it's good enough, I think. So grab my magnets and I'll just put one here. Sometimes I start in the corners, sometimes I start on the long sides. Now this magnet wants to stick to that safety pin. Is my black? Oh, I don't have anything there. Where's my... Oh, that's right, because I was going to move this on the edge so I could tighten that. Let's see. Okay, so I'm slanting it. Okay. Usually when I'm quilting in the hoop, I don't have to loosen or tighten it because I know it's in the correct, you know, it's in the correct tension. But at any rate, so I'll just go ahead and put one there, 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 and I'll go diagonally, go in this corner. I can't go there. I will go here in this corner, and I'll just try to get it in here. Okay, and so then I'll go ahead and I'll push this left side down. I'm pushing this again because I felt that it wouldn't go in. Okay, that side went in, and when that side goes in, I put my elbow down. Push it to the left. Okay, so it is going in everywhere but here. Okay, so obviously it's got to be looser. I loosened it a couple turns. Try it again. Get my magnets. So I'm pushing to the left because the left side is in. So that corner is in. Usually I do this one and then this one last because then I can hold my hand there. Yeah, it's not going in. Probably because of the Trapunto. 2, 3, 4. Still not. No. Okay, finally. Yeah, because of that Trapunto, it's even looser than the red clip. So I'm kind of still centered. I can see my crosshair on the left side here, but I can rotate it if it needs to be rotated. So once it's in, I'll take the magnets off. Yeah, next time I do this, I'm going to have these Trapuntos farther apart by putting something added on to the blocks. So now that they're off, I'll recess it. And you know how they say don't tighten it anymore after you've hooped it? And I can't even tighten it. And this is loose. So I should be able to tighten it, you would think. But it's pretty tight. I probably would have tightened it if I could have, because you were just quilting. It's really, nothing's gonna move. So it's in, and actually that went away once I recessed everything so that this and the bottom are level. I can recess that even a little more. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it feels loose right there. I tightened it just a smidget. Okay, so now it's hooped, and then where's the hole? There's the hole there, and you kind of like, because remember there's tape here, so you want to be careful you don't pull the fabric up. You want to release that tape. And there you go. So it's all hooped, and now we'll go to the machine, and you can see my crosshair. It looks pretty. And we'll go ahead and line up our crosshair in our design with this crosshair. Okay, we're back by the machine, and I'm ready to put this in the machine. And one thing I forgot to mention is at this point now we're basically quilting in the hoop. So I'm going to be using 100% cotton thread on top, and I'm going to use this gold cotton thread, and my top tension is as high as it'll go, all the way up to 9. And I have the pre-tensioner double wrapped, and I even have a little piece of cotton batting up there to give more tension, because cotton thread does not stretch, and we need a really strong non-stretchy thread in the top so that it pulls that bobbin thread up to the top, in which case the bobbin thread is stretchy. It's so fine 50 weight polyester, and polyester does stretch, and the tension on it is cut in half of what my normal tension is. Normal tension on a multi-needle is around 200 millinewtons or 20 grams, and this bobbin now has 100 millinewtons or 10 grams only, because we need for that bobbin thread to be loose so that the top thread can pull it up to the middle where the batting is, because multi-needles are geared towards pulling that top thread to the back. So multi-needles are geared toward the bobbin being real strong and the top being so-so, because you know you want a nice soft embroidery. But in this case we have to like trick the machine into meeting in the middle, like a sewing machine does. Like the combo machines don't have this issue, because combo machines are geared towards sewing, where things do usually meet in the middle. So it's a whole different ball game with them. But that was how I figured it out with this, with these multi-needles. So I'll be right back. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we're on the step where we're going to do the quilting. So this is where, if I had a big quilt, I'm going to be wishing that I had that flat frame hoop. Now, yeah, I made this part of the design 6.5 inches, so I guess I could get one of those hoops, but, well, actually, no, I would have to get a magnetic one because they're the only ones who make a flat frame hoop for my machine. So I kind of pull up the, the corners, and that's how I would do if it was, a regular quilt. Oh God, look what I just did. Oh, that's funny. Look what I did here. Hold on. Let me move this out of the way a little bit. Don't trip on the plugs. And I think I was gonna move this down a little. When we get it in the hoop, okay, we still have to check for center. So what we want to do on the machine here, or on the screen here, and let me see if I can zoom in on that. We want to go back to the crosshair of this design. Now this crosshair that I stitched is the exact same crosshair as the one at the beginning of the design. So when you open up a design, anytime on an embroidery machine, the needle, usually needle number 1, will go to the center of the hoop, what it thinks the center of the hoop is, meaning the center of the design. So this is my last color, but I'm going to come here and hit the plus thread color, and I'm going to go to the first color, which is the crosshair, and I'm going to check if my needle is in fact in the center. So it's needle number 1, which is fine. And what I usually do is on my machine, I usually take one of these shelf liners, and let's go back to 1:1. I might have to zoom out. And I go to the back of the machine, and I turn the hand wheel clockwise, and I just turn it clockwise so that this is down, and when this is down like halfway, then this is loose. I can bring it down. So let's see, I'm not totally in the center. I could go back maybe 2 mils or so, and I'm to the left of the crosshair. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm definitely not in the center. I don't know if you can see. So on my machine then, what I do is just to move the needle, really the carriage is moving, but I want to think of the needle in my brain. So I want to move the needle to the left, and I want to move it back. So this is, did I say left? I want to move the needle to the right because right now it's too far left. So I want to move the needle to the right, and I want to move it back. each click is 0.1 millimeters. So 10 clicks will be 1 mil. So I'm going to go 10 clicks back. Oh, that always comes up because I moved the needle bar. So you always have to hit OK every time you dial with this shelf liner thing. So I'm going to go back 10 clicks. Okay, and I'm going to just go to the right before I check it, but the right was off a lot, so I'm going to go over, say, 20 clicks. That's my bad thumb. I can't even use it. I don't know, though. It kind of looks straight. I'm going to check it. So we'll come over here, and I'll try and put you right in the center. I'm going to do that dial down thing. So I'll dial it down until my take up lever gets halfway down, and then try not to get in the camera. Yeah, I only had to go 10 to the right. So I believe, let me just look a little. Yeah, I'm right on. So I'm dead center even when I went back. Yep. Okay, that's great, but we're not done because we have to check if we need to rotate the design at all. And when we do rotation, we want to think of rotation as like as if we had a spinner, like a game board spinner. That's what we want to think of for rotation. We want to imagine that the needle is like a game board spinner. So I'll show you what I mean. This same crosshair that's in the design, okay, the very first object of the design, we're going to follow that crosshair. We're going to let the needle follow it. And usually to do that, I want it to snap down, but it's not going to snap down because I, moved the hand wheel, with this thing. So as soon as I try to, say, fast forward through this first object up here, if I hit the fast forward button to go to the first stitch of this first object, which the first stitch is down at the bottom of the crosshair. Well, as soon as I hit fast forward, I'm going to get a warning, needle bar is out of position, because we were messing with it. You can see the take up levers down, and I was, messing with it. So when I hit fast forward, needle bar's out of position, press OK to move it. So when I press OK, I'll just show you what press OK. See, it moved back up into position and everything is fine. And now I can snap that down and I can hit fast forward. Now, if you're in an aftermarket hoop, don't be snapping your needle down, because your first stitch, you might have made a mistake and your first stitch might hit your hoop, or a lot of times people will have the first stitch of the crosshair start in the back instead of up here, whereas I don't. I always have it start here because I could see what's going on. I'm less likely to make a mistake, but I don't generally use my aftermarket hoops hardly at all. So anyways, so I can snap my needle down because I'm using a Janome hoop. I'm not going to hit the hoop unless I take the hoop out and forget that I have my needle presser foot down. I've done that. So now I'll fast forward again to the first stitch. It'll be down here. It'll take you in the center. And you'll see if we need to rotate or not. I don't know if this is giving a glare. Oh, it's the light over there. Okay. So I'm hitting the fast forward button. Well, it's pretty darn close. I mean, I can only rotate 1 degree. It looks like it's ever so slightly to the right. The needle is to the right of the crosshair. So if you think of a spinner, if this spinner is to the right of the crosshair down here, then when I move the needle back, you know, I hit fast forward and then, you know, the needle follows the crosshair, this leg of the crosshair back, then just like the spinner on a game board, now when I get back there, the needle's going to be to the left of this crosshair. You know, if you look at this, how it's slanted. It's slanted to the, and this is the crosshair. So it's to the right of the crosshair down here. So when I go back, it's going to be to the left of the crosshair down there. But let's see, because it's not going to be that far off. If I rotate this 1 degree, if I rotate the needle 1 degree that way, it might be too much. I wish I could go a half a degree on this machine. But so I'm going to hit fast forward and see what it looks like down there. I'm going to just hold it down. So see what I mean down here. The longer your crosshair, the more accurate a reading you can get. It's so slightly to the left. I don't know if you can even see that. Like, it's so slightly to the left. So, you know, because right now, this is what it's portraying. It's to the right of the crosshair down here, and it's to the left of the crosshair up there. So if I rotate the needle clockwise 1 degree, it might be right on, or it might be off the other way, because I need to rotate a half a degree, not 1 degree. But let's see. So then, and this is with any machine now, with rotation, you always have to leave the screen. So we're going to go into our menu, edit button, rotate, right here is rotate. And I said clockwise 1 degree. These are the clockwise. I hit it once. It's not going to let me, because my green square is so big. I forgot about that. I don't know if you recall, I decided to make the larger square when I first tacked this down. I decided to make the larger one 7 3/4. Well, it's not even letting me rotate it now, because 7 3/4 is like, it's going to hit the hoop if I rotate it, because of this big green box that I made. So with that in mind, I might have to go back to 7 1/2. So I can't really rotate it. So that's a bummer. I'm going to have to just stitch it like it is. I think if I did rotate it, though, to be honest, 1 degree would not, it'd probably be perfect. I don't know if I should just Okay, guys, I think what I'm going to do is, because it's the same design, but what did I move it? 10 and 10? All I did was move it 10 back and 10 to the right. Yeah. It's the same design, the same hooping. So I'm going to go and make that green box smaller, and so that I can pivot this or rotate it. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I brought up the new design, and I do need to, I'm just gonna set these, even though I'm not using them, I always set them anyways. I don't know. I already did these. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. That was the crosshair that I did. That's fine. Just leave everything on 3. It's fine. And then the very last color is needle number 1. That's the one I'm on. And go back. And it's on needle number 1, but I'm going to go back 10. So 1 mil. And I went to the right 10. Okay, that puts me directly in the middle, and then I was going to go and rotate it clockwise 1 degree menu. Rotate clockwise. Okay, it let me go 1 degree. I mean, see how much that rotated? It's probably too much, but it let me go the 1 degree. I think you can see that 1 down there clockwise, so it says 1 degree. If I went counterclockwise, it would say 359 degrees, you know, because this is like a positional thing. So 360 degrees minus 1 is 359, but I'm going clockwise, so it says 1 degree. I'll hit OK. And it kind of, when you heard that jog, that means that the machine, the carriage went back to what it originally was when it was all incorrect. But rest assured that the rotation is there and the movements that I made are going to be there. When I go to my very first stitch, you'll see. So I'm going to hit fast forward button, and I'm going to come down here, and maybe I'll go 1 to 1, and I'm going to hit the fast forward now. Oh, I'll be darn, it's right on. So it should be right on when I go back. Oh my gosh, it's exactly on. I mean, I couldn't get more perfect. So anyways, with rotation, you really only have to check one of the axes. I don't even have to check this axis. But now here's the other issue. I have to take this basting stitch out. So am I going to distort the fabric and everything? You know, that's why I wish I didn't have these tie-ons, but, you know, what are you going to do? So, I'm going to dial this backwards so that the take-up lever is out of position. And so I just want that foot up, and if I just hit reverse, it's going to give me that warning, and then I hit OK, and then the presser bar will go back in place. I just wanted to get it up out of the way and in position.